evening. I want to start this off with a question. What are your bad reading habits, and are they anything like mine? If you don't already know, I am in the middle of the Wheel of Time series. I just finished book 3. I am also in the middle of the Dune series. I finished book 4 at the end of 2019. So when I finished Wheel of Time, book 3, The Dragon Reborn, I didn't have the next book, The Shadow Rising. So I started reading Heretics of Dune. Makes sense. I had it. But I was so excited to start book 4 that about 50 to 75 pages into starting Heretics, I went to the library and I got The Shadow Rising, as well as a few other things. So that was not a good idea on my part, because that meant that every time I went to sit down to read, I had to decide, am I going to continue reading Heretics or am I going to start The Shadow Rising? And I'm not good at making decisions. It's a problem. So what did I do? Well, I didn't read either of them. I read a bunch of comic books instead. So I have been reading comic books all week and I love it, but it needs to stop. So I'm going to talk about all the comic books that I read. I'm going to put those aside and then I'm going to move on and make a decision. So the first one that I picked up was Forbidden Breads of the Faceless Slaves in the Secret House of the Night of Dread Desire by Neil Gaiman. The reason I picked this up is because it has a really long title, and for some reason I am attracted to books with long titles, ridiculously long titles. I don't know what it is, but every time I see a book with a ridiculously long title, I'm like, why does it have such a long title? And I can't help, I have to look into it. I have You Don't Have to Be Evil to Work Here by Tom Holt on my shelf. I haven't read it yet. I picked up Cowboy Fang's Space Bar and Grill, based off the title, among other things. I did read that. I did not like it. There's a review of it on my website if you want to read that. But anyway, I really liked this. It was funny. It took a turn I was not expecting, and I really liked that. It's basically about an author who is in a spooky mansion and is trying to write a story. You just need to experience it for yourself. Also, it's so short. It's such a short little book. It's so small, and it has such a long title. So it's a nice one-off, by itself, tiny, easy, fun read. Definitely recommend it. The next thing I read was The Wicked and the Devine. I picked this up because the premise sounded interesting. It's about 12 gods returning every 90 years as young people, but after 2 years they all die, or they're all dead within 2 years. And I wanted to know why. But of course, it's the first volume, so there are more questions raised than answered, really. But it was still entertaining. It was an entertaining read. I liked the main character. She's a fangirl of these gods who are essentially all pop stars. It was very amusing to see her interact with them, and but she was still an enjoyable character. She wasn't like too ditzy. She has got a head on her shoulders, I guess is what I want to say. Next time I go to get a bunch of comic books from the library, I'll probably get the second one. It's not something I'm going to actively seek out, but it was entertaining. So when I need more entertaining comic books, I got one. And then the next thing I read was Monstress. This is something I've been meaning to read for a while. My friend has already started it. She's read volumes 1 and 2, and she likes it a lot. I've read some of Marjorie Liu's books, so when I found out she had a comic book, I was definitely intrigued. This is set in a fantasy setting, in a world where there are humans, there are ancients and old gods, and arcanics. And arcanics are human half-breeds with like magical and mystical abilities and appearances. And there's a conflict going on between humans and arcanics. The main character is an arcanic, and she's trying to find answers about her mother and herself, and it takes some dark, twisting turns. I really enjoyed this, and I'm definitely going to get the second one when I return these books. I'm not waiting. I'm picking up the second one as soon as I can. The next one that I read was a little bit different. It's The Dam Keeper, the third book, Return from the Shadows. I really enjoyed this series a lot. It's very heartwarming and also heartbreaking. There was a point where I started to tear up and I was holding it back and was like, I'm not gonna cry. But then I did. I cried a lot. It was a really good end to this series. I think it wrapped everything up really nicely. I loved the art in it. Overall, a very enjoyable read. So I finished up my week with some manga. My friend had volumes 1 through 6 of The Girl from the Other Side. Volume 7 is out, but I haven't read that one. So I chewed through these pretty quickly. I read 3 at night and then 3 the next day in the morning. And I really liked it. I'm glad that I was able to read volumes 1 through 6 and I didn't have to read one and then wait for the next one to come out, because the author likes to end on. It didn't make me cry like The Dam Keeper did, but it does tug at your heartstrings at points. Like, it makes you feel things. If you don't like stories where the author holds back the mystery for a long time, you're not gonna like this. Things are revealed very slowly, and there are still things that we don't understand in volume 6. We're just getting bits and pieces as we're going along in this. But I think it's going at a steady enough pace. Like, it's a slow pace, but it's fine. It doesn't really bother me. Maybe that's because I was able to read 1 through 6 right off the bat and I didn't have to wait. I don't know how long this series is going to be. It's one of those where you can't really predict it because you don't have the whole picture. So it's hard to tell how much time the author is going to need to wrap things up. I don't think that it's going to wrap up anytime soon because there's a lot of mystery still to be solved, but so far, so good. I'm looking forward to reading more, but I'm probably going to wait a little bit until there's like maybe 1 or 2 more out so I can read a couple rather than just one. So those are all the comic books and manga that I read. I have a couple more that I could read on my shelf right there, but I'm going to stop. That means I need to decide, and I think what I'm going to do is continue reading Heretics of Dune and return The Shadow Rising to the library. The library is right around the corner from my work, so I could wait till I'm actually ready to read it when I'm not reading another book to pick it up. Then again, I'm almost halfway through Heretics of Dune, so I could finish it this weekend. So maybe I should just renew The Shadow Rising. So I guess it'll depend on if I can finish Heretics of Dune this weekend before Monday when I have to return my books. I could finish it. I don't know. I'm not sure. Depends on how, So yeah, that was my week. It was a little bit more than a week. It was about a week and a half, I would say, of comic books. But I'm moving on. I'm reading Heretics of Dune. And then I'm going to read Shadow Rising. And then we'll decide from there where we go from there. Turns out my friend is also going through a slump with her reading right now and is reading a bunch of comic books. So I'm curious, is anyone else experiencing that at the same time? Is it the time of year? And if you are distracting yourself with comic books, what comic books are you reading? Because I could always use more to read. Yeah, well, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I will see you next week.